All right, so we're back. So the taxing situation still highly volatile, still heavily debated. Then we saw the next amendment that came out of the progressive era, and it was the direct election senators. So when the Constitution was originally written, each state's legislature would pick two people to become the state's senators. So you would not have any voting power or influence over the state senators. And so, as you can imagine, this became kind of a corrupt system. So you would choose your senate or your state level legislatures. Based on that, they would pick their senators. And people got upset in the second half of the 1800s. There's a lot of corruption in Congress. There are a lot of scandals that came out early 1900s. They decided to fix it. So now in every state, the senators are chosen by an open election, which everybody living in that state votes on. Okay, and this really changed the way that states operated with their senators, because states like Ohio, we're 50-50. For the most part, we're usually going to have one Republican and one Democratic senator. But when you look at our state legislature, it's 70% Republican because of the way the districts are drawn. And so because of that, we're very rarely ever going to have a state legislature that is Democratic by numbers, but we will have an occasional Democratic governor, and we will have a relatively equal split. And then in the president's race, that's why we're a swing state. Anything can happen. Okay. Then you have the temperance movement that goes through the second half of the 1800s, and they gain success and finally outlaw alcohol. And so it is banned during Prohibition. You can't get it, you can't purchase it, you can't make it. And those kind of things fails miserably. Right, it helps people like Al Capone, the gangsters, get going. And then during the 1930s, we repeal it with the 21st Amendment and say, no, we're going to go ahead and bring it back. Okay, and last but certainly not least is women gain the right to vote during this time period. Simple as that. And then the government amendments. Okay, so the Electoral College gets changed. And what it does is, instead of it being first place, second place, and first place is the president, second place is the vice president, now you run as a ticket. So whoever's running as president of the United States, they pick their vice president and they get voted on together. And it goes to Thomas Jefferson and John Adams. Thomas Jefferson, after President Washington said he's done running, had an ugly, nasty campaign. Neither one of them wanted to work together. And we said, this is probably not the best idea to have the second place finisher, or the first loser, as many people would call him, have to work with the president of the United States in such a close capacity. So that got changed to where they run together now. The next one changed the lame duck periods. So it used to be you'd win your election in November and you were put in office in March. You're talking about November, December, January, February, March. So they went ahead and shortened that to January. So now when you win in November, you become president on January 21st. Just eliminated 2 months of a lame duck president there. Term limits, this is the response to Franklin Roosevelt. Roosevelt was elected 4 times. He served as president from 1932 to 1945 when he passed away in the first year of his 4th term. And we say, you know what, it's probably a good idea to go ahead and make it so that presidents can only be there for 2 years, and that's it. So there are limits put into place with the terms. President can only win 2 elections. They can run as many times as they want, but they can only win 2 elections, and you become president. And then after President Eisenhower has a heart attack at the end of his term in the 1950s, we realized that there's this hole. And what do we do if a president is temporarily disabled? And that's what the transfer of presidential power does. So, all right. So the transfer of presidential power, like I was saying, Eisenhower has a heart attack, and he doesn't die, but he's in a position where he can't do his job, and we never thought about that situation. What do we do if the president can't do his job, but they're not in a position where they're going to completely leave the office? And so we passed this amendment, and it's designed around 2 things. If the president knows he's going to be leaving office, the president hold on, sorry about that, my daughter just got up. So but the 2 ways the president can turn over powers: if the president knows that he's going to be unable to do the job, so he's going to go in and have minor surgery, teeth pulled, something like that, where he's going to be under sedation for a couple hours. He notifies the cabinet, notifies the Speaker of the House, and he notifies the President pro tempore in the Congress, or in the Senate. And so He lets them know this Friday at noon, I'm going to the dentist, I'm pulling out a tooth. I'll be good to go to do the job 8 a.m. Saturday morning. When that happens, the vice president becomes acting president. This happens all the time. I don't mean all the time. It happens 4 or 5 times a year. But this is not that uncommon. The other way is that the president doesn't know he's going to give up power. There's an accident. He has an illness. Something happens where he suddenly is incapacitated to do the job. So then the vice president will go to the cabinet. The cabinet will vote by a majority to give the vice president power, and then they will they will notify the Speaker of the House, and they will notify the President pro tempore. There's a safety mechanism in this that we've never seen had happen, but let's say that the cabinet and the vice president are evil people that are trying to take over the government, and there's nothing wrong with the president. The president can challenge losing the power, and then they hold a trial in all of Congress, and it takes 2/3 vote from all of Congress to take away presidential power. We've never seen anything like this, but it is a safety mechanism there to prevent any type of coup. Okay. And then the last thing that was the last amendment that we have is in the 80s, Congress would give themselves raises left and right. And there were some hard times in the economy and people got upset. So we have this new clause, that new amendment that says Congress cannot give themselves raises during that session. So if Congress passes to give themselves a raise, it will not take effect until after the next election, so the people can vote them out at re-election if we don't want them to stay because we're upset with them giving themselves a raise. So it puts a little extra pressure there on them to try to make sure that they are not just handing out raises left and right, and there's absolutely nothing we can do about it. Now, the way that it's worded, it says Congress cannot alter their pay. So some of the Tea Party and some of the people, conservatives, have called from Congress to get paid less and turn that money back over to cut their pay or cut the president's pay because of the recession, because of stuff like that. They actually can't. They cannot do anything to their pay. They can hand their paycheck over once they get paid, but they cannot change the amount that they are paid until after the next election. So there are some limits there, or some things that people are calling for they don't know. All right, so that's it for the amendments and for civil rights, civil liberties. Make sure you guys stay on task and everything. And then on Monday when we start up, we will have lots of fun with policy and getting ready for the AP test. So I appreciate you guys following this and doing this over your spring break. Have a good spring break. Say goodbye, AJ.
Bye.